Amen. Please be seated. I'm just so glad that you guys are here today. I've been preparing this message, and I think it's a good one, so I was hoping there would be people, so I'm glad you're here to hear me out, and then those joining online, thank you. Let's get into our message. Amen. So I don't know about you guys, but whenever I get into or find something neat or cool, I want to just keep it to myself. And then when I think about it, I'm like, maybe I don't want to keep it to myself, but I want to just have more of it. I want to learn more about it. I want to be around it more often. And so when I think like that, then I'm like, yeah, maybe I do want to keep that to myself. Just like those people, you ever heard of those forever students? The ones who just loves to study. They like to read books, and the more they study, they want to do more, and they just keep going, and they love it. And I'm sure each one of you right now, when I'm talking about this, is thinking about this past week where you were telling yourself, I just want to keep it. Whatever it was that you found, and you want to have more of it. All of us. This is just how we are rigged, you and me. We all think like this. Starting from when we were a little baby, we all think about ourselves. How to feed myself, how to take care of myself, how to do good for myself, how to keep myself happy. That's just how we think. Satisfy my needs. We joke about this around my household that my granddaughter, she's going to turn 1 in a few weeks here, and all she wants to do is eat whatever you're eating. So if she has this keen eye, when she sees food in your hands, she just zones in, looks at you, and she stares at you until you share that whatever you're eating with her. And she's just 1 year old. Keep it to myself. Let's get into our text this morning. So like Christina said, we started a new sermon series last week. But before we continue, let me just bring us up to date what we've been learning so far. We kicked off the year starting with Jesus and how Jesus sent the 12 disciples, and then he sent the 72 ahead of him. Jesus says, go. And then in the month of February, remember, we talked about 4 people in the Bible and how God sent these 4 people to go tell others about God. This last week and this week, we're going to look at how you and I, all of us, respond to God when Jesus says, go. We're reading from the book of Mark this morning. And so there's this story in one of Jesus' ministry, right, there's this story where Jesus cast this legion of demons from this man. And we're going to spend this morning talking about that story. So let's read it together. It's up here. You can read it in English behind me. I'm going to read it in Hmong. Mark 5:18 through 20. Ta Yesu taton ye mong cho hulu go. Tu zne ku cho tlang tho Yesu ta cha kun chu ko mo. Ta shi Yesu chi keng. Yesu ha chu nu ta ko cha le cho ka mong je ha kha cho ko cho ke ti pao ha ta. Tu chu ban ko ha lu ko mo le cha. Tu zne da giờ mong kha thông bờ hồ lung jong để cao bảo lý dù để cái Giêsu tàu ba nửa lợ cho số tờ nông cho tôi cứ nó nửa kha sáng chỉ thông lệ and đó là do bạn chỉ sulu. So this is our text for this morning. It's a really short text. It's about Jesus healing this demon-possessed man. It's one of the many miracles that Jesus did when he was with us. We all have heard of this story, maybe parts of it. It's a pretty well-known story, and it's one of the early miracles that Jesus did. Let me just retell it for some of us here. So there's this man, he's demon-possessed by a legion of demons. And you're probably wondering how many is a legion of demons? And a legion of soldiers is thousands and thousands of soldiers. So this man was possessed by thousands and thousands of demons. And so he couldn't be restrained. He kind of just wandered around that the cave, the burial caves, the tomb of that area right next to the Sea of Galilee. And so the story starts. Jesus and his ministry team, they were on the other side of the Sea of Galilee, and they wanted to cross the sea to that side. And so they get into their boat, they go across the sea, and all of a sudden there's this storm. And Jesus was sleeping in the back of the boat, and the disciples were frightened by the storm. So they go back and wake up Jesus, and they wake up Jesus, and Jesus gets up, and he says to the storm, "Be silent, be still." And this is when the disciples said, "Who is this man that even the wind and the water listens to him?" So they arrive to the other side of the sea. And as they get off the boat, Jesus gets off the boat, and then this demon-possessed man approaches Jesus and bows down. And this might be the part that you will remember. Because the demon-possessed man says, "No, don't send us somewhere. Don't cast us out because we don't know where to go." And so they see this herd of pigs over there, about 2,000 pigs, and said, "Send us over there." And Jesus says, "Sure, go ahead." So they go over to they get into the pigs. The pigs, as soon as they got into the pigs run off the hillside. And that hillside is like a cliff. I've seen pictures of that hillside. And it's pretty steep on that side that is next to the Sea of Galilee. I suppose that's where the herd of pigs, 2,000 of them, ran off. They fell into the sea, they died and drowned. Imagine that. So the herdsmen, they run to the nearby town and tell the people what was going on. Imagine that. I see this like chaotic scene. Because 2,000 of the pigs just ran off the cliff. And so the townspeople come, not knowing what's going on. They go to Jesus, and then they see this man that they know was demon-possessed. And he looks normal. He's normal. So they become frightened. And they tell Jesus and his ministry team to go away. Just go, leave us, because they probably have never seen anything like that before. So this takes us to the text that we read, Mark 5:18-20. So Jesus and his ministry team, they get back on the boat, and as they're about to get on the boat, this demon-possessed man who is now freed comes to Jesus and said, and begs to go with Jesus. But what did Jesus tell this man? Verse 19. "No, go home to your family and tell them everything that the Lord has done for you and how merciful he has been." Go home to your family. Go home to your friends. Go home to your people and tell them everything that the Lord has done for you today. This is his story. A pretty short story. So we want to look at and spend some time at the end of this story, the last part. This man, the one who has been freed from his pain and suffering for who knows how long, free from the demons, free from being controlled by the evil one, he is saved by Jesus. And so all he wanted to do was be with Jesus. And our text said he begged to go with Jesus. You and I, all of us, all we want is just to keep it. Keep it to ourselves. We want to be around more of that something good, keeping it. And this man who is now saved and free wants to be with Jesus all the time. He wanted to follow Jesus, have more of Jesus. This is how we are rigged. We think like this. We're constantly looking out for ourselves. How do I do good for myself? How do I take care of myself? And this man, after being healed, all he wanted to do was cling unto Jesus. After you and I, we want to just focus on our faith. My faith is important to me. And don't get me wrong, your faith should be the most important thing to you. You need to guard it so you don't lose it. Maybe that's what this man was doing. To make sure that nothing bad ever happens again in his life by clinging on to Jesus, keeping it to himself, because he found something good. And he wants more of it for himself. And all of us here, we found something good, but I prefer to say something good found you and me. And maybe sometimes, and most times, we do want it more for ourselves. We worry about losing that something good so much that we forget about others. We don't even know that we shouldn't keep it to ourselves. We don't even know that we shouldn't cling Jesus to ourselves, keeping it. Maybe it's our culture, our individualistic culture. And it starts when we are that little baby, like a 1-year-old granddaughter who all she wants to do is be like you. She sees you eating something. She wants that something good, and it looks good because it is what benefits me. And we think like this, from a little baby all the way to being an adult. What benefits me? But then there will be days when you think about the person next to you, and you're saying, maybe this person might take something away from me or take it away from me, this, whatever benefits me. This is why we cling to it. Maybe this is why we want to keep it to ourselves. But here's my point. All about me. And it starts from an early age, from a baby to an adult. This demon-possessed man, after Jesus saved them, freed them from his suffering, and all he wanted to do was have more of Jesus. He wanted to keep it to himself. All about me. This morning, Jesus is teaching us something between the lines. Because this man who has been suffering for who knows how many years, right? Something good, something big happened to him on this day. All of his sufferings went away. It was a miracle. He was healed. He was saved. And what did Jesus tell him? No, go home and tell your family everything that the Lord has done for you and how merciful he has been. He has a story. You have a story. I have a story. All of us here this morning, we are like this man. We have been suffering from something, and now we are all saved by Jesus, something good. All of us here and watching online and at home, something good happened to us. And some of us may not have a coming to Jesus story like this man. Some of us were born into the faith. Some of us, our parents became a believer later on in life, and some of us do have a coming to Jesus story like this man. But however you are saved, however you came to Jesus, we all have a story. And sometimes our story is just how Jesus helped us this past week. I don't know what's going on in each one of your life, but I've been struggling with something for a few weeks here. And I pray about it. That's what we do. We pray about it. And looks like there is a plan that God has. There's forgiveness, there's love, there's hope, there's working together, there's something good. We all have a story to share with others. And something good always happens to us during our week. This is Jesus working for us. This is Jesus working with us. We have a story. And when we are free from that suffering of whatever it is, Jesus is saying to you and me this morning, no, go home and tell your family all that the Lord has done for you and how merciful he has been. Go and tell your story. Start with your family. Start with your friends. Start with your people. Share with them your story so they will also receive that something good that you receive from your story. And sometimes we forget about our story. And sometimes we tell ourselves, it's all about me. It is all about my faith. And I need to find the best church for me. I need to find the best preacher for me. I need to find the best worship for me. I need to find the best for me. Because what benefits me? It's what benefits me keeping Jesus to myself. And when we think like this, we are saying to Jesus what this man asked. I want to go with you, Jesus. I want to cling to you, Jesus. Can I be with you all the time? Does this sound familiar to you guys? I used to think like this. I used to tell kids that maybe this church is not for us. Maybe that church is for us. Maybe we should find a church that will bring us closer to Jesus. But now I realize this. Jesus has already saved me from my suffering. He has already cast out that legion of demons into that herd of pigs. I am free. And I am saved. So what is more important to me right now? Maybe tell my story. Maybe tell my story through a church. Maybe tell my story at any church. Yeah, go and tell your story. Once you are saved, it is no longer about you. It is about telling others. No. Go home to your family and tell them what all that the Lord has done for you and how merciful he has been. This is how we respond to Jesus says go. Instead of keeping Jesus to ourselves, we go and tell our story. Each one of us here this morning watching online, Jesus says go to you. Jesus says go to me. Jesus says go to the next person sitting to you and the person sitting next to you. Because you and I, we take and take and take from this world, and it starts from the age of a granddaughter who's turning 1 to being an adult. And this morning, Jesus is inviting you and me, all of us here, to go and tell. Because we have received something good. And we go and tell. Go and tell our story. So others will also receive that something good you have. So others will be free from their pain and suffering. So others will be saved like you and me. Remember we have this saying at Cornerstone, be to do. And most of the time you and I, we still try to do to be. We still try to do to be a child of God. We still try to do to be this church person. We still try to do to be this faithful person. We still try to do to be this strong Christian. But Jesus has already saved you and me. And God has declared you a child of God. Why not just be his child? Be a child of God. And then go do what a church person should do. Go and tell your story. Let me close with this for this morning. This story was in a region of where it was a trading region. And so during this time, people from all that other regions come into this area to trade. And so over the time, throughout the years, it became a more Gentile region. And Jesus told this man to go and tell his story to his household, his friends, his family. So this man went back home. He went from town to town in that Decapolis area. And Decapolis is a name for the 10 cities, going from Damascus all the way up to the South Sea, 10 cities. And this man, of course, he's a Gentile. He's the first Gentile missionary in the Bible. And Jesus told this man to go and tell his story to an area that was mostly populated by Gentiles. And you and I know that during this time in the Bible, most Gentiles don't believe in God. Only the Jews. And so Jesus sent this man back to his home, back to his people, back to those who don't know God. And last week, you and I heard a message about go first. Once you are saved, once I am saved, we all become a missionary. A missionary to those who don't know about God, who don't know Jesus. You and I, we are a missionary to those in our household. And this is our family, our friends, our people. So all of us here this morning and watching online, Jesus is sending us back to our household to tell our people who mostly don't know Jesus. Go first. Go and tell your story. This is how we respond to Jesus says go. Go this week and remember to go and tell your story to others. Amen. Let's stand for confessions.